Guys, welcome to my channel. Today we have a very special guest in the studio. It's everybody's favorite, Baby Yoda. If you're new to my channel, I'm Rob Sigler and we talk about everything related to Photoshop. In today's tutorial, we're going to make a space composite using some images from Envato Elements, a photo of Baby Yoda, and a 3D car seat that we're going to render in Adobe Dimension. I'll provide you with a photo of Baby Yoda and his car seat in the description below. If you like compositing in Photoshop, then Envato Elements is one of the best deals in tech. There is so much you can download, from photos to fonts, video templates, and even Photoshop brushes and plugins. If you'd like to check it out, click the link in the description. Also, I put a link in for Baby Yoda if you'd like to purchase him as well. Sit back and enjoy the tutorial. Here's the image we're going to use for our background layer. Since it's a desert, it's going to sort of look like another planet. So let's make a few adjustments to it. First, we're going to duplicate the layer. Then we're going to do some free transform and warp. And I'm just going to bend the horizon down, maybe pull these sand dunes down just a little bit so the horizon is more centered. Then we'll press enter. I'm going to make a selection of this cactus and shadow. Then hit Shift F5 to bring up our content aware. And we're going to zap that out of there. I'm going to deselect it. Let's use the clone stamp to just fix up a few spots where it doesn't look very natural. Now let's go make a color lookup adjustment layer. I'm going to select Moonlight. And now we have a night scene that is in outer space. Let's actually put some stars in the background. So here's another image I downloaded from Envato Elements. We'll bring that to the top. Hit enter, and let's experiment a little bit with blending modes. And I think lighten is going to look best. Let's mask it off the mountains by using the quick select tool. And then we will hold down Alt and click on the layer mask. And there's our sky. Let's turn the opacity of the stars down just a little bit. And I'm going to flatten this. That looks great. That's our background image. Now I've moved over to Adobe Dimension, which is Adobe's 3D app. And if you don't have this app, don't worry. I'm going to include the file we make in the download below. And we're going to select Sphere, and I'm going to drag it onto our plane. And this is going to become Baby Yoda's car seat. I'm going to select Scale, and I'm going to make the X scale a little bit larger. That looks good. Let's use our tool to move our camera just a little bit. And that looks nice. Let's select a material. I think this metal will look nice. Now we don't want to see so much of a reflection in the car seat carrier. So let's turn down the metallic look. Let's maybe add a little bit of roughness to it. And let's change the picture that is reflected in the background. We don't want to see the inside of a photography studio. What we want to do is select a desert image to be reflected on the car seat. That looks good. Let's go to environment. We're going to turn off the ground plane because we don't need a shadow. I'm going to move this up just a little bit and let's render it. Our egg is now rendered. Let's drag it into our background image. And let's put it into place. I think right there looks good. Let's make some adjustments on the egg. It's a little bit too bright, so we're going to add an exposure adjustment layer. I'm going to click the clipping icon so that we only adjust the egg. It's also the wrong color, so let's add a color balance adjustment layer, clip the clipping mask icon, and we're going to add some blue, maybe a little cyan. And that is blending in much nicer. Let's make this a group, and we'll call this group the egg. Now we need to make the cutout in the egg where Baby Yoda is going to sit, the little opening in the car seat. So I'm going to press P for the pen tool, and you're going to want to use the curvature pen tool. This is really the easiest pen tool, in my opinion, to use. I'm going to double click to start and make a nice round arc like that. Double click again because I'm changing directions, and we'll bring it around like that. The nice thing about the curvature pen tool is it is super easy to make changes once you've made a path. Push these up a little bit. And that looks like a nice opening in the egg. Maybe we'll pull this forward just a little bit. Perfect. Going to hit Command and Enter, and that will turn that into a selection. Going to make a new layer and Command and Delete so that it fills it with black. And this is the opening where Baby Yoda will sit. Now let's open up our Yoda file. Here's the photo of Baby Yoda from the downloads below. I'm going to hit Select and select Subject. It's made a nice selection. Let's hit Copy, and let's go back to our desert and hit Paste. Obviously way too big, but that's okay. Let's use the Move tool to shrink him down a little bit. And I want to put him in here so that his hand is holding on to the edge. And that looks pretty nice. Hit Enter. Let's mask Yoda so that it looks like he's actually inside of the egg instead of standing in front of it. What I'm going to do is make a layer mask on Yoda first. Then Command and click on the black portion that's the cutaway. Now I need to inverse my selection, and now wherever I paint with black on the Yoda mask, it will erase his body. So with 100% opacity, I'm just going to come in there, and that looks really nice. Let's deselect that. Let's make a little shadow on Yoda's outfit here at the bottom because it's the shadow from the egg. Now let's turn on maybe 20% opacity and just paint a little bit of black in there. Perfect. And let's go back to our egg and make a new layer, and let's make a little shadow under his hand right now. So it looks like it's really above the egg. Maybe a little bit right there as well. And that's starting to look pretty nice. Now we can merge those layers together. We can merge our opening, but let's keep Yoda separate, and we'll name him Yoda. Now Yoda's a little too bright. Let's make an exposure adjustment layer. I'm going to clip it to Yoda, and let's turn down the exposure just a little bit. Let's also adjust the color. I'm going to select Color Balance Adjustment Layer, hold down Alter Option, make it a clipping mask to Yoda, and let's add some cyan and a little bit of blue. And that is starting to look really nice. If we'd like to at this point, we can shift click on the Yoda layers and merge them all into one layer, because I think it is starting to take shape quite nicely. And there we go. Let's add a planet in the background. I've downloaded a planet from Envato Elements. We're going to drag it into our composition. Let's make it big. And we'll put it right there in the background. That looks good. Hit Enter. Let's turn off this layer because we want to mask it behind these sand dunes. So with the Quick Select tool, I'm just going to make a really rough selection and then turn back on our planet, hold down Alter Option, click on the layer mask icon, and there it is. Let's make a new layer above our planet to give it a little bit of a glow. So let's select a color that is blue and very bright. And with a really soft brush, I'm just going to dab once or twice just to give the planet a little bit of glow. We can come down to our background layer and just dab once so that it looks like the light is spreading onto the background. There we go. That actually looks really nice. Let's add a little shadow for our egg. So let's click on our background layer, make a new layer above it. And for this, I'm going to change the shape of our brush. I'm just going to right click and bring these 2 points together. And let's try to aim it the same direction as our egg. There we go. And with a black brush, just going to dab once or twice. And the shadow would actually be in front of his car seat because the light source is coming from behind. Let's start to put some finishing touches on our composite. The first thing I'm going to do is darken the background a little more. Let's put an exposure adjustment layer on top of the background layer. And let's turn that down quite a bit. I think that looks pretty nice. And now let's add some more shading to our car seat. And what we're going to do is make an exposure layer and attach it to the car seat. And let's turn the exposure way down. And then on the layer mask, I'm just going to dab with a very soft brush, lighten the top of it a little bit. Maybe erase a little. There we go. That looks pretty nice. Now we're going to add a lightsaber to Baby Yoda's hand, and this is actually a missile I downloaded from Envato Elements. It does look like the base of a lightsaber, so we're going to pretend that's what it is. Let's drag that into our composite, and I'm going to use the move tool to position this so that it looks good. And let's make sure that it is on top of Yoda's hands. There we go. I'm going to shrink this down just a little more. And I'm going to place it right over his hands just like that. Now we need to wrap Yoda's fingers around the lightsaber. So we're going to go to our Yoda layer. Let's turn off our lightsaber, but let's label that first. There we go. And what I'm going to do is use the curvature pen tool again to just trace around his fingers so that we can mask them into above the lightsaber. So I'm going to make that a selection. Now on our lightsaber, I'm going to just press the layer mask button, and it did it backwards, so I'm going to hit Command I to inverse, and there we go. That is looking pretty slick. Now let's blur the lightsaber handle just a little bit because it's not really matching the blur of Yoda. Just a tiny, tiny little bit. There we go. And we are ready to add the actual light part. So let's make a new layer, and we'll call this the Saber Light. And with a hard white round brush, we're going to make a single beam of light. I'm going to cover up a little bit of the handle. Then I'm going to hit Shift and click, and it's going to make a nice straight line. Now with the eraser tool, I'm just going to erase the bottom of this. Actually, that looks pretty nice. Perfect. Let's add some light to it. So the first thing we're going to do is click Effects, and we want to have some inner glow. And why don't we make his lightsaber green? There we go. Make sure that Edge is selected under Source. We don't want it to be the center. We want the green to be on the edges. And let's turn down the opacity just a little bit. And you can turn the size up and down. That looks good. Now we need to make some outer glow. So let's just check off outer glow, and we want this outer glow to be green as well. We'll make it a little bit brighter shade of green. And I have the size turned all the way up, and the spread maybe right around 7%. And you know what? Our inner glow is a little bit too dark. There we go. Perfect. Now we need to paint some of those green highlights on Yoda's head. So what I'm going to do is find our Yoda layer and select the hue saturation adjustment layer. Let's clip it to Yoda. So we're only affecting Yoda. Let's turn on the colorize checkbox and then bring our slider for hue to green. And let's bring the lightness up a little more. Perfect. And now invert the layer mask by hitting Command I. Then with a white brush, very soft white brush, and let's turn down the flow to maybe 25%-ish. Let's sort of paint in this glow on his head where he would have light from the saber. Now we need to do the same thing for his ship, add a little bit of green on there. So we're going to click the ship layer, we're going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer, click colorize, shift it to green, turn the lightness up, and let's invert the mask. And then again, very soft brush with very low flow. Just going to paint with white. That's actually too much. Let's turn the flow way down, maybe 5 to 10%. And we are just going to color that. And for the final step, let's add some atmosphere to our scene. Here is a picture of some smoke. You can find tons of free smoke and fog images online. Here we go. We'll rotate it and we will size it to our composite. And then let's put its blend mode to screen. And then I will turn that down just a little bit. Now let's take everything in our composite and flatten it and put it at the top. We're going to hold down Shift, Alt or Option, Command and E. Now let's open that in Camera Raw and we can make final adjustments. We can turn down the exposure just a little bit. We can add some color grading. We can make the shadows a little bit bluer. We can also make them a little bit darker. And we can add some grain to the picture. I'm going to select Effects and go to Grain. Let's zoom in and see how that looks. A little bit too much. There we go. And that's our final image, Baby Yoda at night with a big planet behind him. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you learned anything new today, please do me a huge favor and like and subscribe. Baby Yoda and I will see you in the next video. Stay healthy, stay happy, and keep photoshopping.